Back with you on the Two Deep NFL podcast, Jeff Chadiha, NFL Network. Eric Eager, Super Sports, Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB. Talking a little NFL football. We have DeAndre Hopkins. He is out and about. Some people say Chiefs and Bills are the front runners. Cleveland Browns name being mentioned. Who should be going for DeAndre Hopkins, and what will they get when they land him, whoever that might be? John Gruden works with the Saints quarterbacks. Why is this happening? Jimmy Garoppolo has an injury clause in his contract. Quinnen Williams is close to signing an extension with the Jets. What's it mean for the Jets? What's it mean for the D tackle position? Does the NFL have a gambling problem? Davante Adams blows up on the Raiders, then walks it back. We talk Le'Veon Bell. He talks weed before games. Turns out he smoked it before games. At least that's what he's saying now. Talk about it all here on the Two Deep NFL podcast.
You're listening to the Two Deep Podcast, the most complete analysis of the National Football League, breaking down the NFL like no one else can. Two Deep is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Eric Eager, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Eric Eager is the vice president of research and development for Sumer Sports. Soren Petro was the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. Two Deep is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Gann Asphalt and Concrete is now hiring for all positions: project manager, dump truck drivers, operators, and crew members. Starting pay up to $30 per hour based on experience, with paid time off and insurance, just to name a few of the benefits. Check out GannAsphalt.com for more info. Now, here are the hosts of the Two Deep Football Podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Eric Eager, and Soren Petro.
Back at it with you on a Tuesday night. We stream live on Tuesday nights, a little bit later tonight than normal. If you catch us via the podcast, you want to be a part of the conversation, we can see your comments in the chat room. Guys like Cam Fletcher, newly married Cam Fletcher, by the way. Congratulations to him. Telling us a little hello. We'll have some of the conversation, bring up some of the comments that are there, but you can be a part of it if you join us on the stream. LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, all means with which you can watch the broadcast live. Jeff Chadiha, NFL Network, Eric Eager, Sumer Sports, Soren Petro with you. And let's start with DeAndre Hopkins. Who should be going after DeAndre Hopkins, Jeff? We know that we've seen reports that have the Chiefs and Bills out there, whether that's true or not. Cowboys, the team that need him the most. The Packers to put a weapon around Jordan Love. Aaron Rodgers, if you're all in and it's just 1 year. Who ought to be going after DeAndre Hopkins right now?
Well, I mean, I think one, you're talking about teams that need to have the money to make it happen, and have to have avoided the position. And so for me, the Lions are a very interesting team for me, just because of Jameson Williams being out for 6 games. After him, they just have Amon-Ra St. Brown and then Marvin Jones Jr. Cowboys getting Brandon Cooks makes them less interesting because they've got Michael Gallup and they've got CeeDee Lamb. But I think the Panthers, to me, are under the radar pick for this because they went after Adam Thielen. They picked up DJ Chark. There's not a lot of firepower there. Terrence Marshall is in the mix. He's got a young quarterback. He's from South Carolina, DeAndre Hopkins, that is. They got a lot of salary cap space. I think the second or third most available right now in the NFL. It would not shock me if it was one of those teams, more so than a Bills or a Chiefs, who I think don't have the money and two don't have nearly the desperation that some of the other squads would have.
Yeah. Eric, who you eyeing that ought to be tracking for DeAndre Hopkins?
Yeah, I mean, Jeff makes a great point about Detroit. We don't know that Jameson Williams is good. In fact, last year he didn't give us really any evidence that he was the next great wide receiver in the NFL. When St. Brown was out, the Lions were really not great as a team. When he was banged up, they were not great. They lost Chark, who went to go play for Carolina. Jones Jr. is kind of redundant with Hopkins, but Hopkins is much better than he is. So it would be a good place. I mean, honestly, if you're Detroit, you're already kind of over-indexing for this year anyway with who you drafted. And so what's the point of not doing it, right? I think about this similarly to I think about the Eagles, right, where both your coordinators are probably going to get head coaching jobs soon, especially your offensive one. So you might as well just go in on this year. I like that one a lot. I'm surprised Jeff said Carolina, but it does make sense. And Frank Reich does need to get off on the right foot there. That one, obviously the Bears would be another one, but I don't know if Fields is necessarily the kind of guy that throws to contested guys like Hopkins, but they do have $27 million in cap space, and in theory they could front load the entire deal on the cap and leave it. If it were a terrible decision, it would just be, or if it was a terrible signing, it would just be 1 year and it would be no skin off their back like that. That's one that I don't mind. Beyond that, to Jeff's point, it's just a lot of teams that don't really have much in the way of space. So it'll be interesting to see. It's funny because there aren't that many teams that can actually go out and do this.
Jeff, Eric brings up a lot the contested catch thing. And it's real. The numbers are there. That's how it's graded. But if you get with the right offensive mind, don't you get them open a little bit better than say what was going on in Arizona? Or is DeAndre Hopkins just so slow that all he is a ball?
What are you going to say, Eric? I think Eric wants to jump in.
It's not that he's slow and can't get open. It's that the stuff that he can do when he's contested puts him over the top. Like if he was only thrown to when he was open, his numbers wouldn't be as good. It's not that he can't get open and all he's getting are contested balls. It's more like he gets the contested balls too, and that's what adds to his value. So if he goes to a team like Kansas City where the guy doesn't throw contested balls, he's just not going to get the volume that he normally does. And that's and with Chicago, it's like, is there evidence that Fields can throw the ball on the shoulder that he needs to throw to when the guy's covered up?
Yeah. I think that the danger in DeAndre Hopkins, I'm a DeAndre Hopkins fan. I like him. I've really enjoyed watching him throughout his career. The danger is that when guys like that go off a cliff, it is way off a cliff. And so the return you're going to get on that kind of investment for a player who may be, let's say, 10, 11 yards a catch, maybe 5 or 6 touchdowns. His stats the last couple of years, albeit compromised by missing games with injuries and suspensions, are not encouraging for a guy who's who's 30 now, who is not fast to begin with. And yeah, it's a lot like Odell Beckham, where he could very easily be surviving off reputation, and he may be better served to be a 2 or a 3, but he wants to be paid like a 1. And so that to me is always going to be the hard part with someone like him. Whoever's looking at him is like, do we really think this guy can be that much of a difference maker in that expensive of an investment that we get what we want out of him, and he makes our offense better, and he helps us elevate our team substantially?
Let's point out he was on pace for, 115 catches and about 1,300 yards last year, 6 or 7 touchdowns.
Yeah.
31-year-old receivers on their way to the Hall of Fame. Curtis, who works with me on the radio show, looked this up and gave what guys are like. Chris Carter, to me, is that a fair comp? You wrote a book with him, Jeff.
He's like Chris Carter. Yeah, that's what comes to mind. Yeah.
31 years old. Chris Carter's 31-year-old season, 96 catches, 1163, and 10 touchdowns.
He was also playing with Randy Moss, right?
Yeah, I mean, he always had a second guy that was better than him at the end.
Tim Brown, 104, 1,400, 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, and he had Jerry Rice with him, right?
Michael Irvin, 75, 1,209.
Now you're just talking shit about Alvin Harper.
Terrell Owens, 77, 1,214.
Yeah, he ain't Terrell Owens. He's a whole different beast.
I mean, I'm just giving you here. Isaac Bruce, 69, 981, and 5.
5th all time in receiving yards.
I mean, where do you think DeAndre Hopkins is going to finish? I get Jeff's fall off a cliff thing, but it's not usually by guys that are barreling towards the Hall of Fame, which I got grief when I said barreling towards it. He's like, oh, he's in. like it takes a little more than just 12,000 yards now, and he's at 11-3.
Well, especially when you, to use your phrase, haven't pissed a drop in the playoffs.
That's exactly, which is one of the reasons why I would think he would want to latch onto a playoff team.
Yeah, I think the point I was making, I don't think is what I was making, was that as guys get older at that position, they need to have more around them to continue that kind of production. And so Deshaun Watson playing in any offense where he's going to be the featured guy, I don't see him being the dominant player he was 3 or 4 years ago, which is not a knock on him. It's just a reality. Like most guys, no matter how good they are, they begin to, and you mentioned Tim Brown, like what they were doing with that offense with the Raiders, when I was around them back then with Jerry Rice, those guys weren't catching balls and going 50 yards with them. They were catching a lot of 10, 12-yard passes, and that was their offense. A really strong run game, a quarterback who could move around, very mobile, Rich Gannon. It was a lot of things played into that success.
I will point out, Chris Carter, who I think is the closest comparison, ages 31 to 33, 263 catches for 3,300 yards, 35 touchdowns.
Chris Carter's 1999 season before he got injured the month of November was one of the most egregious months by a 30-year-old or more wide receiver I've ever seen. Like you make a point, Petra. I would say that's what makes Buffalo the compelling case, right? Because if he goes to Buffalo and you got a separator as a wide receiver in Diggs, and again, we're not saying he can't separate. We're saying he thrives in unseparated situations. Mm-hmm. If you go to an offense like Buffalo with a quarterback who will throw anything and who can throw it to the right shoulder, you got Diggs as a separator, Hopkins as more of a possession guy. That'll be pretty good for him. I see success there. Same thing in Detroit. Jeff's Lions. Amon-Ra's a get open guy. Hopkins is a bad ball guy. Like that's a great combination, right? So like there are places where he can go and have success. And I think as long as he goes to the right place, like I would bet on him.
Yeah. By the way, we do have some inquisitive people. Eric, are you drinking Melio?
I'm not actually. I'm drinking lemon lime prime.
All right. And then, okay, Eric, I'll bite. What's in the box behind you?
Well, you'll soon understand, Petra, how much my wife has been very great and gracious. I actually, we just paid movers to box everything for us. So, I dead ass don't know what's in any of these things, other than the fact that this couch is out. Everything else, who knows? I have no clue.
Okay. Eric just moving to Atlanta here and joining us. Boxes we're sure are all around him, just off camera, but one has made its way into the shot. So
he couldn't have pushed it out for the podcast.
Makes me think that there's literally a fountain next to it.
It's for the effect.
There's no room to. Just want you to know that he's working double time right now. John Gruden working with the Saints quarterbacks. What the hell is this, Jeff? What do you make him? Oh, he's just stopping by. He's just talking. Why? What is going on?
I wasn't as, I won't say disturbed by this. I wasn't as flabbergasted by it as other people might have been, because it's pretty common to have coaches.
Whoa.
What?
He's got an active lawsuit against the league, correct?
Oh, okay, that part of it.
and he was fired for sexist. What all was in the emails? It was
homophobic.
It was racist.
Homophobic.
Sexist, racist, and homophobic.
It was like tic-tac-toe. I mean, it was like the bingo. He got he four squared the whole thing.
He had all of them. Yeah. So come on, that's not it.
But the point I was going to say was that it's not uncommon for coaches to bring in other coaches to get ideas and talk. Look, Derek Carr is a very religious man, a very forgiving man. He was the only person in the corner of Henry Ruggs when he had his issues, drag racing, and killed somebody. So I would imagine that Derek Carr didn't have a problem with it. Obviously they have a relationship. Dennis Allen didn't work for Gruden at any point, right? There's no relationship there between them.
I thought he was with them down in Tampa.
Yeah, I feel like there might have been, but But I think what the whole point of it was, they're trying to figure out, what does Derek Carr do best? How can we make him feel comfortable? What do you do with you guys offensively? I felt like it was probably a more enlightened move by a coach who felt like, I got to get the best out of this guy. And so why not go and find John Gruden, who's doing nothing except for suing the NFL and probably still trying to backtrack on all those racist, homophobic emails.
Dennis Allen's never worked for Gruden.
Never worked for him, right?
Yep, I was just going to say that. No overlap.
But, I mean, this isn't – Jeff knows this as well as anybody. This is an inbred league.
Yeah.
This is a like, I mean, even, know who I know, like, it's like, you're in, like this person could have done X, Y, and Z. Like the number of people that I know who are like, oh yeah, we're going to, it's egregious. Once you're in, I think. And Gruden's just like, he's in. So, for us to like try to like rationalize and understand why they patronize him right now, like it's weird, man. It's like it's like a church. It's like, like once you're an elder or something like that, like you're just in, I guess. Yeah. It's weird, man.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, if you can benefit somebody else in any way possible, NFL teams they'll work with you. It takes a lot.
Don't you, like, if you're Dennis Allen, wonder, is this guy sniffing around my job?
Well, I think to your point, what you just said, I don't think Johnny Gruden's ever coaching an NFL team again. and not in this lifetime. So I think there's probably a lot more security in knowing the guy coming in is only there to help you out. And from what it sounded like, it wasn't like he was doing a ton of work with them. It sounded more as if he was there kind of taking notes and offering opinions. And I don't think he was installing anything or saying, hey, here's my playbook from the Raiders, go ahead and run with it. I think it was more of, he was available. And I'm thinking back, didn't Andy Reid have I guess it was a college coach he started picking the brain of when Alex Smith showed up, the guy who ran the pistol offense in Nevada or someplace like that. And that guy was like up at camp all the time and helping him get some ideas for how to use Alex. It felt more like that kind of a thing. Like, hey, what can we do here that we don't normally do with quarterbacks?
Well, it's like Vic Fangio, like consulting for the Eagles in the second half of the last year. It's like, I mean, these guys, there's money in the banana stand, and they're gonna give the money to, and John Gruden can use $1,000 an hour probably at this point.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he's hurting. I like this one from Nick. Maybe the Saints should have figured out what Carr could do before they signed him. Or maybe now they're.
Well, they literally didn't let him cross midfield in the game last year where they shut out the Raiders.
Was it?
Yeah, like they beat them like 24-0. I don't think the Raiders crossed 50-yard line that game.
Yeah. Well, I'll say I understand where that guy's coming from, but this thing did happen pretty quickly as far as him becoming available. It wasn't like they were sitting there like scoping him out for an entire season, saying he's going to be a free agent. We're going to make a move on him. Like all of a sudden it's, hey, Raiders said you can leave. So there's probably about 2 or 3 week process there where he was out there and they signed him. So I could see where they want to do some homework or at least do some due diligence to help him out.
How about the Jimmy Garoppolo injury clause in the contract? This is a battle amongst media reporters who are talking about, look, we've got this. They can walk on it. And other people saying, yes, we all know this is standard procedure. What is it, Jeff?
Well, I'm not as privy to everybody's contract in the NFL, but for that, it seemed from what I understand, from what I was told, for that to happen to a quarterback of his caliber, a guy who has, a brand name in this league. And it just feels like it just feels kind of sketchy to me. And I don't know, either they found out something after bringing him in they did not like, or he was hiding something. And we all remember what happened last year during the regular season where he was supposed to have surgery, then he was good, didn't need it. And then all of a sudden now he's having surgery. It sounds like they're very concerned about the possibility of this guy not being available to them. They want it out. And so I think it's going to be a rough season for the Raiders. When you factor in the way Davante Adams was talking about his unhappiness, The fact that this guy, Garoppolo, has a relationship with Josh McDaniels, that this stuff didn't come up, like to say if he fails a physical, we can get our money back and dump him. And he's got to be here 2 days after the end of the season for this waiver to go away. It just seems like there's a lot of dark clouds around this franchise this year.
Eric, what do you make about this conversation?
They should have tanked. Like I just don't understand what the Raiders are doing. Like the AFC laps you. Like the AFC. We talked about this. We've gone back and forth on this. There's so many great quarterbacks in this conference, and I understand that you came in and you took over a playoff team, the Raiders. 2021 were a playoff team. They weren't a great team, but they made the playoffs. And you had some bad luck last year. But like 2 months ago, we're all like, what were the Raiders doing? Going for Garoppolo, trying to, try to be competitive this year. They weren't going to be competitive anyway. Maybe this is their way of pretending, what was it, 4th season in Vegas now, to be competitive, but really trying to tank for a draft pick, because otherwise this doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I think one of the things we're kind of finding out is that they really think a lot of what they did in New England outside of Tom Brady, like too much, right? Like I'm on record and I'll stand by it. I don't think if you can't get one of the heavy hitters, then getting Jimmy Garoppolo to facilitate the game until you get one. But I don't think there's any inclination that they've got any idea of what they look like, right? Like Aaron Rodgers, it should have been whatever it takes, right, to be wooing Aaron Rodgers. You've got Davante Adams, Jeff. You mentioned Davante Adams. How much is the fact that he's upset and complaining, and then walking back from it? Like, what do you make of the fact that with his favorite receiver, they can't get on Aaron Rodgers, which is water under the bridge. We don't need to really go there, I guess. But Davante Adams popping off about the Raiders, and then you think he got a talking to, or what? It's like, why 1 minute you're blasting the team you just got to a year ago?
Well, I mean, look, he went there to play with Derek Carr, who's his best friend from college. That didn't work out. From what I understand, he was doing a lot of lobbying to get Rodgers there. When Rodgers was looking to make a move, we know how that worked out with Rodgers going to the Jets. And so, I'm sure Davante Adams went there thinking this team wants to compete. And now this team is very much in no man's land in the middle of a division in a conference where they've got to figure out, okay, what do we do here? Like, and I'm with Eric. You got to find a quarterback. You got to start the clock on whoever quarterback you're going to get and get him going. Because Patrick Mahomes is way down the road. Justin Herbert is way too talented. That's in your own division. Sean Payton showed up. And so you're already at the bottom of your own division looking up at all these teams that have quarterbacks. The conference is filled with quarterbacks. You got to get that process started. And so why you end up drafting a defensive end in the first round when that's the most important piece in place, I don't know. But I agree. I think that they are in a mode now where it's just better to start just losing games and trying to rebuild as fast as you can, because they're not going to be relevant for like the next 5 years.
Is Davante Adams popping off because he realizes how bad the situation is that he's in, Eric?
Oh yeah, I mean I think he's trying to get it's similar to like when Odell was in Cleveland, and it's like, where are we going, boys? Or trying to, even like Randy Moss when he was with the Raiders. It's you start just acting out so that they get rid of you, right? Like,
but Eric, they always feel that way after they get the check, like to the point where in the last podcast.
Carolina signed a 7-year, $49 million deal, played in the Super Bowl, and then was doing sit-ups in his driveway on ESPN the following year. Like, this position is not a one for well-adjusted people. It's just not. Like, Keyshawn.
Why is that? Why are receivers like so?
Because you have to be like, no. As somebody who played the game and I played it in high school, I was much.
And college. You played it in college as well.
I played tight end in college, which I enjoyed a lot more because you were involved in more plays blocking, right? But like to be a wide receiver, you have to be a little nuts, because there's 70 plays in a game, and you're going to be involved in like 10 of them if you're really, really good, and like 10% of them if you're normal, right? So you got to like motivate yourself and, all this kind of stuff. And, it's a weird position. Like it takes some, your running backs get the ball like 50% of the time they're in the game. It's, it's a reassuring position. Wide receiver, you got to be a little nuts.
How does it end with Davante Adams with the Raiders, Jeff?
Well, he'll be there. He'll play out the deal. I mean, by the time he's
like Randy Moss played it out with the Raiders.
Yeah, I mean, he's what, 31 now? Is he 32? He's old. He's an older guy, right?
2014 was when he was drafted.
So he's 9 years in. So he'd be 31.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, he's going to take his money. I mean, as much as he can complain all he wants, but he's going to take that check. And so, yeah, he's going to end up finishing his career there. Or if they let him go, he'll go someplace else and wash out. But he made his bed. I mean, this is what I'm talking about with somebody mentioned DeAndre Hopkins. Like when you're making moves based upon, I need to get my money, I need to be the highest paid guy, I need to get my bag. I don't really respect you as much if you start complaining about the other stuff after the fact. Like you had a chance. I mean, I know he was traded there, but end of the day, he could have worked something out in Green Bay. There were better situations for him, and he wanted the money, and he got it. This will come with the money with bad teams.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with going and getting the money, but to your point, Jeff, then bitching about the reason there's money available for you is because there's not money for the quarterback.
That's right. Yep.
Right, like so, because the reason you're not in Green Bay is because the quarterback made a lot of money because he's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do like this. I think part of the diva nature of the wideouts, I think James was talking about, is because they're not hitters. They're dancers, primpers, posers. They're not into the physicality part of the game. I for whatever reason the position is, I mean, I think that's as good a theory as any that's out there. By the way, Davante Adams is 30 and will be 31 on December 24th.
Yeah.
So he'll play most of the year at 30 years old. So he skipped his last year at Fresno. He was 22 in his first year. So 30, he will turn, they'll call it his 31-year-old season, but he won't turn 31 until he gets to December 24th. So theoretically still quite a bit left, could be quite a bit left in the tank for him. We're brought to you by our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service pavement and maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warranty. You can find them online right now at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Any parking problem for your business is no longer a problem if you know Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Online at GannAsphalt.com. Let's talk about whether or not the NFL has a gambling problem, Jeff. Is this an issue that is, we're hearing it in college football. The SEC folks were talking about it in their spring media days. Do you think the NFL has a gambling problem?
Well, I think, how do you quantify that? You're talking about the guys like Jameson Williams or Calvin Ridley.
There's a lot of not understanding what the rules are. I mean, there've been a couple of stories written here in the last week that everybody's going to gamble and they're going to be there's a lot of rumblings out there that there are more suspensions coming. Now that was a few days ago and we've yet to see anymore. But
yeah, well, I know. Look, I can just so for full disclosure, like we spent a lot of time talking about gambling in NFL meetings for the last couple of years, ever since the league has got involved with the FanDuels, the DraftKings, people like that. And so they've made it abundantly clear that anything that comes remotely close to gambling is going to put you in harm's way. Like I can't walk into a sports book. And so if I know this, I know the players know this. And so I don't know exactly what Jameson Williams did for the Detroit Lions to get his suspension, what Calvin Ridley did. But I do know a lot of players gamble. A lot of players like being in casinos. A lot of players, when you're young, you have a ton of money. Not just these guys, NBA, Major League Baseball. A lot of pro athletes gamble. Michael Jordan was an epic gambler. So that's going to be the way you live because you feel you're invincible. You feel like you're not going to miss the money. Charles Barkley famously once said about his career, he lost $10 million gambling. So I can't quantify how many guys are out there breaking the rules, but I know the rules are such now that they better figure out how to stay on the right side of it because they're not playing around with this. And if they have a problem, they want to solve it really quickly by having a zero tolerance approach to it.
I was at the Mirage Hotel and Casino for the Cowboys Steelers Super Bowl. Neil O'Donnell v. Troy Aikman, legend.
Larry Brown Super Bowl.
Yeah, the Larry Brown Super Bowl. Yeah. And they're playing craps at the table next to me was Keyshawn Johnson, soon to be the number 1 overall draft pick. And I said, hey, I said, and there wasn't really many people there. It was right before the game. It was like 45 minutes before the game. And so everybody had gone to wherever they were going to watch the game. And I said to him, who do you like in the game? You get a bet on the game? He goes, can't bet on the game. I'm a member of the National Football League. Now, I'll tell you, if I could, Cowboys are going to kill them. I'd bet on the Cowboys. My Cowboys won by 7. The line that day was either Steelers +7. A lot of people, myself included, got 7.5. So he would have lost or pushed on the bet. Well, my point is, he was barely out of college and he already knew what the rule was.
Yeah.
And he knew I can't go near the sports book and I can't bet it. So to your point, Jeff, they all know that, right?
Yeah.
Like it's all out there. I'm just curious, I don't think the NFL has a problem. I think they've got a solution. By legalizing it, everything is tracked. Mm-hmm. Nobody's betting on credit unless I'm sure there's still illegal bookies out there that do let you bet on credit. And that's where people get into trouble because they're betting money that they don't have to actually physically get their hands on. But this to me, Eric, I'm curious about your thoughts. You've been around, the sports betting world for a long time. I know you too don't wager on bets because of your relationship, or don't wager on football games because of your relationship with the NFL. But doesn't the fact that it's legalized now, like we're seeing this is just the guys that have got to get their hands burned touching the stove, because guys have always bet on sports. There just wasn't there wasn't a body that reports to the league. If anything, I don't think they have a problem. I think this is proving to be their solution.
Well, and we have to be clear with what the rules are, because like Jeff and I have the same, when I was at Pro Football Focus, I was allowed to gamble because we only gave data to teams. We didn't get data back. We get data back at Sumer. So I have the same restrictions as Jeff. I can't bet on sports, any sports, because I could have access to data. The reason I can't is because I could have access to data for a player who might play a different sport from his college days. So even if I wanted to gamble on like college baseball, there's a chance I could have inside information about his athleticism scores from his college. And so there's a reason. So that's the prohibitiveness. And there's a question of whether somebody like me should have that. But we decided at Sumer to have the same policy, at least initially, as guys like Jeff do. Jeff has the same policy as basically every non-player in the NFL employee. Jeff has that same, where you cannot gamble on sports except for horse racing, which I think is a funny sort of political carve out there. But that's how it goes. Players, and by the way, that's not true about every other sport. I have a friend who works for the Pittsburgh Pirates who bets on football, because in baseball, you just can't bet on baseball if you're an employee. So it's different across sports. And then the other part is the players can gamble on other sports. They can't. The issue is they can't gamble at the facility. And to your point, they've been doing this for forever. My former, I have former colleagues who used to be players. I'm like, who you like in the game? And they knew everything. I'm like, wait a sec, you just quit playing. You don't know this much about betting. And so Jameson Williams, for example, he only got the 6 games because he gambled on a different sport at the facility, which is a worse, not as bad of an infraction as gambling on the NFL, which is what his other teammates who got cut and got indefinite suspensions got. So
and
we got to be careful.
Calvin Ridley.
But exactly. And to your point again, this is where I'm going to agree with you. They don't have a gambling problem in the sense that now that things are legalized, they can track these things and they can actually strengthen the integrity of the game. This is happening. This has been happening forever. No. It's now at least in a position where it can get caught.
Yeah, I think it's a sexy story to put out there, but I think it actually in the long run will prove to be the solution for the NFL. That's what a lot of people said if you legalize it, you shine the light on what's going on. And I think that's what we're seeing here. So there'll be some guys that get burnt hand on the stove, and then I think everybody will get away from it because they don't want to lose 6 game checks, right? That's a lot worse than winning a couple grand.
But just ask a simple question. To me, it's like if you have a policy that keeps people from playing fantasy football or engaging in March Madness pools, if you're Jameson Williams, you can ask somebody, hey, look, can I do this before you make the bet?
Yeah.
That's the whole.
Yeah, well, I think he knew. I think he knew. He just doesn't understand what geofencing is, and the fact that they could pinpoint where he was when he made the bet. That's the problem. That's why I told the story about Keyshawn Johnson. That was 20, 30 years ago, and he knew long before he ever even got drafted what the NFL policy was. Everybody knows it, right? Like, there's no excuse for I didn't know. You just thought you could get away with it.
But these guys are all like, why did Michael Jordan gamble hundreds of thousands of dollars on a hand of blackjack? Well, it's because it's the only thing that he could lose. Like, these guys love the risk. They love being able to have, like, why do these guys, like, why did Eugene Robinson hire a hooker the night before a Super Bowl? Is it because it gave him the thrill? Like, there's an aspect of, like, putting it on the line that these guys, it's a weird situation, but, like, but if you understand that part, it's like it makes a lot of sense that they do it because if you're the best in the world at what you do, you still got to put something at risk. I mean, it's part of human nature.
Right, for sure. All right, let's talk a little bit about Quinnen Williams, close to an extension with the Jets. Jeff, how much does he get? Has he closed the gap on Aaron Donald at all? And people in Kansas City know Chris Jones is probably eyeing an extension as well. Quinnen Williams is the next domino to fall after it originally looking contentious. Now the reports are that they're getting close there. What's the deal end up looking like?
Oh, I don't think he's going to close the gap on Aaron Donald because Aaron Donald is a whole different kind of beast with multiple defensive player of the year awards and Super Bowl rings and all this stuff. I mean,
I don't know. Deshaun Watson closed it on Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, well, that was a whole difference. And he was a free agent. Putting Williams gets out there, yeah, he'll close the gap. But as long as he's playing for the Jets right now, I mean, they'll appease him. I forget what the next highest. Who just signed the deal with the?
Was it Dexter Lawrence?
Dexter Lawrence, yeah. He was about 22, 23, right, million a year. Yeah. Is that what it was? He'll be in the $25, $26 million range. I think that's where he belongs. I think right now, if you look at interior lineman play, it's Chris Jones, Aaron Donald, Quinnen Williams are the gold standards. Even considering the down year Aaron Donald had last year, he's a beast. And so they want him to be there. He's the linchpin of that defense. His coach is a defensive coach. Yeah, you got to help. He is after Aaron Rodgers. He's the most important player on that team. So,
sorry, Jeff.
No, that's
Eric, you agree?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's tough because you have Rodgers coming in, and you have the allure of that, and that to me that like doesn't make like this is another part where we just got off a Red Gold and Bold, the best Chiefs podcast, where we were talking about DeAndre Hopkins doesn't take less to be part of the winning crowd. Like you think like you bring in Aaron Rodgers, and that obviously takes away from some of your resources. And then you have Quinnen Williams, who's going to want more, right? Like he's not going to be like, oh, Rodgers here, I guess I got to take less. Like that's not how it works, right? No. So there's going to be conflict there, and I think it gets resolved, but it doesn't initially get easier when you bring in Rodgers for a guy like Quinnen Williams.
Gann Asphalt and Concrete is hiring for all positions right now. If you're interested, right now they're paying up to $30 per hour based upon experience, paid time off, and insurance, just to name a few of the benefits. You can find them online at GannAsphalt.com, hiring project managers, truck drivers, operators, crew members, all positions. Go to GannAsphalt.com for more information. Le'Veon Bell, let's wrap with this. What do we make of the fact that Le'Veon Bell says he was smoking weed before games, Jeff?
I'm aghast. I can't imagine a guy like Le'Veon Bell smoking pot ever. A guy who took an entire year off of football to get the money he wanted, tried to be a rapper. Yeah, I mean, again, no shock here. Smoking before game. I mean, guys smoke. Guys been smoking leaf for a long time. I'm not surprised that he did it before games. I'm not surprised he talked about it now. I don't even know how it came up. It was some podcast he was doing, right? In Pittsburgh.
Probably smoking weed on the podcast.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So, no, I'm not in any way stunned at all. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No pun intended by that one, but not shocked at one bit.
Cam said aghast, AGHAST, or aghast, AGASSED.
The latter.
Yeah.
Well, do we not remember the time that he and LeGarrette Blount were somehow LeGarrette Blount got back onto one of the great heists of all time is LeGarrette Blount being in the backfield with Le'Veon Bell, kind of having a whatever season, getting caught with weed in the back of a Uber with Le'Veon, them cutting only LeGarrette Blount, and Blount going back to New England and winning a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
These things are hilarious.
I remember that. Yeah.
Nobody ever better named than LeGarrette Blount, by the way. Just
18 touchdowns from here.
Poetic how it works out. I, for one, Eric, am I the only one that sees, okay, I understand this patient running style now. I understand how he can just kind of tiptoe in the backfield, This man's all good. He's just waiting for the hole, right?
I mean, he's certainly so are we left to believe then that Adrian Peterson, who would run up the ass of the guard before anything would ever open up, was he on the other side? Was he taking speed? Or how was that going?
Yeah. I don't know, but I just know Le'Veon Bell had a very patient running style. And
I remember being in the stands at the Chiefs-Steelers playoff game. We ran for $170. Dontari Poe was playing free safety with Ron Parker that whole game.
Listen, if Le'Veon Bell was stoned when he was playing at the peak of his powers for the Steelers, I think a lot of other guys are going to try it because he was pretty damn good.
Or have already tried it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, don't forget, we're brought to you by our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete, making parking lot problems disappear since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. Hit that like button, hit that love button, the subscribe button, share it with your friends. That is always much appreciated by us here at the Two Deep NFL podcast. For Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, Eric Eager from Sumer Sports, we wish you the best unpacking those boxes. Eric, pitch in there. Stop making the family do it all for you. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHP saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Two Deep NFL podcast.